Welcome to Unit 4, Algebra Prep. This is our unit on linear. It's our linear unit. So we're going to be doing about lines. We're going to be learning about graphing lines, all things about lines. So before we do any of that, our topic 1 for today is topic 1 is on the coordinate. So coordinate plane, or sometimes we refer to it as the coordinate grid. So the coordinate plane / grid. It is referred to as both. Because we need to make sure that we are all in agreement where everything actually lies on the grid, how to plot points on the grid, what all the different, some vocab for it. So that's what we're going to start with today. So I'm going to start by drawing a coordinate grid here, right? So this line is my y-axis. I'm going to try to write neater. So it's y-axis here. Usually we just write the letter y, but it is the y-axis is what it's called. And then we draw a horizontal line that is our x-axis. Right? So that's two of our vocab words, the y-axis and our x-axis. Make sure that looks like a y. Make sure that's clearly a y up there. All right, then we can talk about the two axes split this into this coordinate plane into 4 what we call quadrants. And so we need to be able to label the quadrants. So starting with quadrant 1 here, quadrant 1 is the top right corner. So Q-U-A-D-R-A-N-T, that is quadrant 1. So quadrant 1 is the top right. And then we go to the left. Quadrant 2 is over here to the left. So quadrant 2. And then we go down below quadrant 2 to get quadrant 3. So Q-U-A-D-R-A-N-T. There's quadrant 3 down below. And then we're going to go to the right to do quadrant 4. All right, so these are the 4 quadrants. Now, if you think about the word coordinate plane, coordinate starts with the letter C. And I'm going to over here up in the top, right above by quadrant 1, I am going to draw a C. And if you think about drawing a C, right, we start at the top in quadrant 1, and then we go over to the left and down to the right, and then we end there in quadrant 4. So if you think about the letter C, it can help you remember what order the quadrants go in. So if we draw our C from the top right and then go down and around and end in the bottom right, that is the order of the quadrants. Another thing that we need to be able to label here is that there's a point right here in the middle where these two axes intersect. And we call this point the origin. All right, so the point in the middle where the axes intersect is called the origin. And let's go down here below and let's define what origin stands for. So origin, let's make it look like an N and not an H, right? So origin, O-R-I-G-I-N, is where the X and Y axes intersect. So it is where the X and Y axes intersect. That is the origin. And when we talk about the origin and we talk about intersecting, on our next page, we'll talk about being able to write the coordinates for that point. But before we flip over and start talking about points on this axis, let's make sure we're very clear as to where the various positive negatives parts are. So if we remember our number line, last unit we were graphing inequalities on a number line. Remember, the positives on a number line are to the right of what I just plotted as that origin, right? So here, this would be +1, this would be +2, this would be +3, this would be +4, This would be positive 5, right? Going across, keep going. The positives on the y-axis are up. So this would be positive 1, this would be positive 2, this would be positive 3, this would be positive 4, and so forth, right? We can keep going up the y-axis positives. So positives are to the right, and positives are going up. On the contrary to that, the negatives are going to the left. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and so on. So to the left of the origin are the negatives on the x-axis, and then below the origin are the negatives on the y-axis. That's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Let me try to write that 3 again. Negative 4, and so on, right? And we could keep going. So positives are to the right, negatives are to the left, positives are up, negatives are down. All right. So now let's go on to another page. I'm going to draw a coordinate plane again. If you have graph paper and you want to pause this and go get some graph paper because it'd be easier, feel free to do so. I am not going to use graph paper because I know a lot of you may not have graph paper, and so that way you're able to do it with me without your graph paper. All right, so here we go. Let's label our x-axis again. Let's label our y-axis again. Here's my x and y axis. I'm going to change this to red, and I'm going to label the origin right here in the middle again, right? Because that was the point in the middle. Now, let's chat a little bit, another vocab word. So when we're talking about points, this origin, it's in the middle, so we're going to plot some other points here in a second. We need to talk about what we call the ordered pair. So ordered pair, right? And the ordered pair is the pair of numbers used to name a point on the grid, right? So it is a pair of numbers used to name a point on the grid. And it looks like this, x, comma, y, right? So an ordered pair is a pair of numbers used to name a point on the grid. And I'm going to say, and then I'm going to put a line here. I don't know why I added a new one. And it is put in parentheses. If you don't put parentheses around your ordered pair, you are not listing a point. So if we want it to be a point, it needs to have parentheses. So make sure that you always have parentheses when you're writing ordered pairs. So ordered pair, the x comes first. The x is our back and forth, right? If you look at the x-axis, it goes left and right. The y comes second, the y value. The y is our up and down. It goes up and down. So Mrs. Amstone always likes to say that you have to learn to crawl before you can stand to walk, right? So you have to go crawl across the x-axis before you can stand and go up or down on the y-axis. So got to do the x first. Always, always, always got to do the x first. Now, our origin right here in the middle, the ordered pair for our origin here, it's right there in the middle. So this is our starting value. So this is actually 0, 0. So the origin is 0, 0. The ordered pair for the origin is 0, 0. Now let's talk about finding other points on this graph. So I'm going to draw some lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll do 6 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So these are all tick marks that represent lines on the graph. Now, if we had graph paper, right, this would all be actual graphs or graph lines, like those little light gray lines that represent the graphs. So, but we don't need to draw those all in order to be able to graph here. So remember, these guys over here are my positives, and these guys up here are my positives, these guys over here are my negatives, and these down here are my negatives. So I'm not going to draw in all the numbers on here. If you want to in your paper, you can. I don't want to make it hard for you to follow what I'm doing. So I'll draw right in the numbers that we need to as we use it to kind of keep it a little bit cleaner on these notes. So first thing I want to graph is the point 2, 4. So we're going to graph the point 2, ordered pair 2, 4, right? So that means that the x is 2 and the y is 4. So starting at the origin, we're going to go over this way to 2, and then we're going to go up this way, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here, this is going to be my point 2, 4. All right, we went over 2 on the x-axis, we went up 4 on the y-axis. Okay, let's plot another one. How about if I plot one in purple? So then now let's plot -3, 5, right? So starting at the origin, we're going to go on the axis, x-axis first. We're going to go over here, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to go up, because it's -3, we're going to the left, and then we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is right here. It's kind of hard to see on this when you don't have the grid lines, but this is the point over -3, up 5, +5. Right, -3 to the left, +5 up. So that purple one right there is -3, 5. All right, now let's do -1, -3. So starting at the origin, -1 means we're going left 1 on the x-axis, and then we're going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3 on the y. These little dashed dotted lines I drew, you don't need to draw those. I'm just kind of helping us see where those lines are. But we went over 1 to the left, and then we went down 3. So this is the point, -1, -3, that blue point. And then I'll do one black point here. So then my last point is going to be over 4, down 1. So 4, -1. Right, 4, -1 means we're going to go to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to go down 1. So this point right here is over 4, -1. 4, -1. All right, we went 4 units to the right and then 1 unit down, all starting at the origin, right? So when we're plotting points, plotting ordered pairs, we start at the origin, right? Our starting place is the origin. So start at origin and then go right or left and then go up or down, right? That is the order that we do when we are going to plot points on the coordinate grid. So your homework 4.01 is going to give you some practice on plotting points, identifying points, making sure you have the right ordered pairs for the right points. We've got to make sure that this is clear in your head and you have it all correct before we move on, because when we start doing graphing and other things with the coordinate grid, if you don't have the x and y, if you don't have this part right here correct and know that the x is first and the y is second, that the x is back and forth and the y is up and down, then the rest of everything else we do can get all mixed up and be backwards. So go ahead and make sure you get your, make sure you get your notes done for your homework done, 4.01, and for this notes. Uh-oh, sorry.